Okay, welcome back to Hindustan Astrology. On today's episode of Interviews with the Gurus, we have Simon Chokowski. Did I say it right?
Chokoisky, like chocolate and whiskey.
Chokoisky. And he is a very esteemed Vedic scholar. He especially works in Ayurveda and also works a lot with Sanskrit and the mantras. And also he does a lot of predictions for sports. And so, he hits on a lot of areas that I find fascinating. So welcome. Thank you so much, Simon D.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. That sounded a little bit like David Frawley's resume until you said sports prediction, because I actually don't work with Ayurveda, but I worked at the Ayurvedic Institute. But
Okay.
the sports stuff is all me. So,
Okay,
and I
right on.
wrote a book about it. And yeah, so I accept the high praise, some of which may or may not be warranted, but we'll see. Here we go.
Well, I've always enjoyed your videos, and actually that's something that, if you just want to give people a little just brief introduction, and I'm part of the reason why I wanted to have this interview is that I want to take one of your courses, but I'm uncertain which one to start with. And so maybe you could just talk a little bit about the courses that are available on your website. And I know one of them, the Dharma method, I believe, when you click on it, it says, contact me. So I'm contacting you. What is it that we need to do to get into?
Oh, the Dharma type certification. That's
Yes.
my elite level training, and I want to make sure that the students are prepared for it, ready for it, and it's also it's the most expensive training I have. It's a couple $1,000, and so it's
It's
because it's a
totally
big.
worth it.
Well, I think so, and in that course, I poured out everything that I had learned over the last 20, 30 years, including Ayurveda, Vastu, face reading. I invited speakers on homeopathy, on Vastu as well, and astrology, certainly Jyotish. So that's because that's the way subjects are taught in India. You don't when you when you study with your guru or your mentor in India. Today you may talk about astrology. Tomorrow you're going to be reading Bhagavad Gita. The next day you're going to take a walk and observe people's faces. On the next day you're going to take a walk and look at their houses, and then the guru is going to ask you, do you think the family in here is happy or not? And then and then he or she's going to ask you, why do you say that? And you're going to say, well, Guruji, their front door looks like it's broken, so the door is the lagna. The door is the first house. Therefore, they have a weak first house. And you know what happens when someone has a weak first house in a chart. No matter how many good yogas they have, they're not able to utilize them. So this is a principle from Parashara, that you may have the best Raja yogas, but if your lagna is too weak, you're only going to get little wisps, little bits of it.
Hmm.
So traditionally the teaching is done in this very holistic way. It's not like here, it's not like a university curriculum, right? Jyotish 101, today we're going to talk about the grahas. We're going to start da 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 da. Jyotish 102, da 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 da. No, it's not done like that in India. Or at least it wasn't. And so I appreciate that style of teaching. It's a kind of Socratic method where the you don't talk about the boring stuff first. So on your first day, the student might ask the teacher, why do I have, all these allergies? And you'll say, you have Ketu in the second house, in Maga Nakshatra. Well, what does that mean? Well, Maga is your ancestors, so you've inherited something poisonous that you have to filter in this lifetime.
Right.
And boom. And then that also helps people take the burden off their shoulders, because not in an irresponsible way, because you go, okay, all of this stuff I'm experiencing, okay, maybe it's not all me. Maybe I'm just the vehicle that has to work through these things, but maybe it's my parents,
The
alcoholic tendencies.
blood.
It's what's in my blood. And so this is why in the Vedic tradition you honor your mother and father. It doesn't mean being obsequious and subservient all the time. It means taking on their karma and purifying it. That's what children do. That's why nature wants us to have children, because all the hopes and dreams that you had, you're going to pass on to your kids, the stuff that you couldn't do. And so Jyotish tells us It's a karmic map of everything you've inherited, either from your own past life or from your parents. And it's our job is to try to make sense and read it for the person, make a story of their life, hopefully.
Right.
Hopefully an interesting story, because in even one little element of the chart can ripen and speak volumes. The other day we were talking about 2 degrees of Taurus in the sidereal zodiac. So 2 degrees of Taurus is the star Caput Algol.
Oh, I watched this video, and actually Joni uses this chart as well of Hitler, and we talked about this, and I was like, oh my God, you can't make stuff up, it's so accurate.
And so I put that out to kind of warn people, okay, the next couple of days Venus is going to transit, so if you're running a Venus period, just watch what happens to you. And lo and behold, stuff happened about people losing their heads, because that's the mythology of that star. And
you know what? I have a friend who has Venus in Taurus, and she just found out that her ex-husband lost his job, and the alimony is, probably not going to be there. And she was like, oh my, and I said, oh my God, Venus is crossing right over the Pleiades,
Right. So the Pleiades, the Alcyon, the Yogatara is at 6 degrees Taurus, and it also symbolizes cutting. It symbolizes poor eyesight. It symbolizes a number of things. It's heat, too much heat. And when that heat's unprocessed, it has to go somewhere. So it burns the eyes, burns wherever it sits in the chart. But Algol is at 2 degrees. So there are a couple of interesting, dangerous degrees in Taurus, as well as a few very good ones. 16 degrees Taurus is the star Aldebaran, Rohini, which is passionate and powerful and so on. So there are things to talk about in the horoscope that you could spend an hour just talking about one point. And so it truly is a map of the person's entire life.
Yeah. And, talking about the Socratic method, I think that was what I could see that now in the courses that are on your website. Because I was like, this isn't organized according to level 1, level 2, level 3, and I'm like, where do I start? I don't know. Kind of like a kidney candy shop. Like,
right.
Okay,
well,
that's
this one. That's also a failing, and if you're a sort of organized mind, that can be a little frustrating. And so I'm redoing my website. It's being redone right now as we speak. It'll be out in a couple of weeks.
Oh,
and
wonderful.
there it'll be a little more organized in terms of what the courses are and so forth. But we just finished a great course on nakshatras. I know everyone has a class on nakshatras. So this is the anti-nakshatra class, because it's everything you're not going to learn in any other class. So it assumes a sort of baseline understanding of what each nakshatra is about, and then it goes into, but here's the stuff you're not going to get in other places, like I don't know, Ashwini placements. People with Ashwini moon or significant placement, their parents are often from a different caste, and that can create a problem in the upbringing and in the life. Ashwini can have deviated septums often, or problems with breathing. That's a little more obvious because it's the horse. And there are other little tips and tricks like that you don't get in most of the books on nakshatras. So that course is out. It's 97 bucks, or it's $127, I think. It's 9 weeks, or I think 12 weeks we spent on it. So we went deep into each nakshatra. We have a decoding Parashara course, which is going straight into the Sanskrit and translating word for word, and then showing you how the translation sometimes gets it right, but sometimes not so right. And you read something and you go, like, for example, and Trump actually has this combination. It says, the translation says the person will be highly regarded, but it doesn't say highly regarded. It says they will be talked about, very talked about. Yeah. So there's a difference, right?
Right.
In mani is the word for highly regarded, but kirtitaha means people will be singing about him or talking about him, but it's not necessarily in a positive way with respect. You get it?
Mm.
So there are subtle differences like that that the translation won't give you. And so we did that course. It's actually still ongoing. It's going to be a 18-week course, 18 lessons, I think, on
Now, are
Parashara.
these videos that are uploaded to your website once you pay for it, you download them, or are these live classes that are ongoing?
These are and were live classes, but they're all recorded. So once you pay, you get the full download. You get everything at once, so you can watch. So if you want to watch about Kritika Nakshatra, you just go to that video, watch that, and so forth. So it's all recorded, and these are the least expensive classes I have. I mean, for $100, $120, it's 12 to, I think it was more like 15 lessons on the nakshatra. So that's like $8 a class.
Wow.
Which for a 2-hour class, I mean, it's a seminar, a webinar. So it's the cheapest I've done, and I'm not doing it again. But those are available now. So if people want them, they can go out and grab them. I put my heart and soul into it, and that's why if it sounds like I'm kind of promoting it or selling it, it's because I know what went into it, and I know how much Shakti is there. So hopefully people can get a little piece of that and
Yeah.
use it. Use it. That's the main thing, is use it in your practice, in your life.
Yeah. Well, I love studying the roots of things and the fundamentals. And I've been doing the Sanskrit videos that you have. I did number 3 today.
Woohoo!
And so that, yeah. while walking on my treadmill, not running. I couldn't do it if I were running, but I'm walking and I'm learning at the same time, and it really helps actually. So that sounds totally up my alley. But like the video that you did on Algol the other day, that was a live class that you had just done. So is the decoding dharma
Decoding,
that's the
decoding your
live
life
one now?
map. That's yes, decoding your dharma is still live. So that's a mini class on my orange book. I can here. Let me grab it. 1 second.
Okay. Yeah, I get a lot out of the live discussions too when we can ask questions, because that's when active learning happens. It's like, those classes I had in grad school where the professor would talk the entire time, nobody was learning
They're
because,
ridiculous. Yeah.
literally adults only have an attention span of 22 minutes. So a professor shouldn't really talk for more than 22 minutes. After that, it should be questions and, active learning where you apply what you're, and then the professor just sits back and kind of directs things.
I agree. And that's the format that we use, 100%. So this book, the Dharma Method, which looks like it's backwards here, is the sort of the basis. And then so we talk about how to live a life full of dharma with a ton of little secrets and stuff that I've learned over the years. And that course is still ongoing, believe it or not. So yeah. So
not all astrology.
no, that's the only one that I made for sort of to accommodate people who aren't astrology minded, but who want to dive into the Vedic tradition.
Got it. See, I feel like I've put so much into Jyotisha that I'm like, you know what? I need to do I did Hatha yoga for a long time, and Bhakti yoga. I used to, chant with the Hare Krishnas, and I still dance with them wherever I see them.
Yeah.
I run, but there's a lot of other parts, and because of my, health condition, it's been difficult for me to travel to India. And so, yeah, that sounds like this would fill in a lot of the other, gaps that will make Jyotisha make a lot more sense.
Well, Katya, the thing about your beautiful energy is that you are a mother, essentially, and you are an outsider, but the way the way outsiders express is they could express through any of the other types. And I believe you're most like an outsider playing a laborer. And the laborer is dharma. Oprah is a laborer. So I believe you're the Oprah of the outsider or Vedic community, in the sense that you, and by the way, I don't know if I can share this. Do people know your chart? Because I just looked at it, just glanced at it. I don't want, okay, I won't share anything.
I've never put it up online, but I've talked about, like, you know, my moon's in Hasta and, you know,
so with Jupiter in a place, in a particularly angular position, let's just put it that way, it's right on an angle. It gives you the bhava that you are that you're a mother and a teacher, and in Yemaya, I mean in Santeria, I believe they call it Yemaya is the divine mother, and
divine feminine.
The divine
and I
feminine.
talk a lot about the divine feminine, you know.
Yeah.
And this is something in Arabic that got frustrating with me, is I felt like I was hitting a dead wall. I wanted to go farther with the spiritual aspects of the language and the music and stuff. And I was coming to sometimes a dead end, but then I found an opening when I, you know, realized, oh my gosh, a lot of this stuff comes from India. And that's the divine feminine, you know?
Well, and what what does a mother do? The kids come to the mom dirty, and they yell, mom, this happened to me, this happened to this happened, and they unload all their stuff on the mom. The mom takes it. The kids feel a lot better, and they run off, and they forget about the mom. They don't. And now the mom.
That's the Saturn aspect of Pushya, you know, bearing, you know, all that weight of the world, you know.
Yeah. So a good lesson here is, if you're already feeling the weight of also your ancestors' karma and all that, is to create boundaries with the people who are unloading stuff on you, and to still, you are who you are. You can't change that. You are the divine mother, but to give yourself time to clean that stuff off, so that you're not carrying other people's junk. And that's, you know, that's one of the lessons of Saturn is Saturn is the dutiful worker, but Saturn can also be taken advantage of. I write about this in the 5 Dharma Types book, where laborers are happy to work, happy to be busy and to be of service. But sometimes if they don't ask for their value, then people can take advantage of that. And like the person who comes to trim the bushes. Oh, sir, I will do it for you. No problem. And no problem. No, at some point you have to say, and it will be $100, and I'll do the best job.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. You set your value, and then people will respect that. And so I think the biggest challenge for a mother is to establish, to set her value. Listen, you're going to come in here and you're going to trail all that mud. You're going to tell me your story. First you take a shower, then you're going to come in, you're going to sit, then we're going to talk, right? You set the rules because you're the boss.
I have to do that with my husband. Oh my God. He loves to work outside, and then he drags in all the dirt, and I'm constantly saying, take your shoes off at the door, and I'm sweeping the dirt back out.
Yeah.
You know, but Saturn's my Atmakaraka, so.
Yeah, so it is your dharma to be of divine service. And ultimately, yes, Saturn is able to see the divine in everyone, in the husband, in the wife, in the children, and in the person across the street. But just because you see God in them doesn't mean that you can also tell God, hey, God, take off your shoes before you come into the house. Those are the rules of the house. Out there, you're God. In here, I'm the boss.
It's so true. And you know what? I don't do well with people, or men in general, that have these big inflated egos and expect me to bow down at their feet. I think that's why I resonated with you, because you're so humble. You have every reason to be arrogant, and you're not, you know, and I love that about your energy. And I was like, that's my teacher. I need to be studying with this guy.
Well, I love the feminine divine, and it is that's where everything comes from, isn't it? And I'm sure I'm probably arrogant in some areas, but
We don't
Um,
come off that way. I mean, I've never met you in person.
when you know your
I've never met
shortcomings,
Chuck in person either. You know what I mean? It's like we got all these ideas about how he is, and let me tell you, I'm telling you, hardly anybody's met him. You know
met
what I
whom?
mean? It's
Whom?
like I need to meet you and feel your energy. But from
Yeah.
what I can tell, I absolutely love where you're at, and I'm so grateful for how much material that you produce and how giving you are with it. So
Well, that's sweet. Thank you.
you're
I'm
welcome.
amazed anyone watches this stuff, honestly, because it's low production value, right? I'm
That's
just
the
using.
best.
Look,
This is
look at
the
this.
best.
This is something I put with a rubber band on this microphone so that I don't pop, so you can't hear the crackling. But this is I've jerry rigged this stuff, man. And this is anyway. So I'm amazed anyone watches. Um, and sometimes I go for a couple months without posting anything because I'm like nobody's watching, and then someone will say, "Simon, we're waiting for your video. Where's it?" I'm like,
Oh,
"Really? You're
that's
waiting?"
true. Yeah, a lot of people are shy, believe it or not, in this crazy world of social media. It seems like everybody is showing off. There's
Yeah.
actually a lot of shy people out there, and they just want to listen. They don't want to say anything. They don't want to, whatever. But they really, follow and listen. And so just, keep producing content, because I mean, I love it. I get a lot out of it. And actually, I met when I did the Gift of Light Expo in Columbus, Ohio last year. Just I set up a booth and I do readings and stuff. And I had somebody come and say, "Oh, I do Western astrology, and I know Simon, is doing Bitcoin, but I've been using a lot of his ideas about Bitcoin and applying it to, the
Hmm.
stock market." And he
Hmm.
said, even with Western astrology, like a lot of his information helps me, and
Hmm.
he bases a lot of his predictions on things that you've said. So, I mean,
I
if
want
you
10% of his profits and none of his losses. Okay. Tell him he can just PayPal me, or
That's
better yet,
funny. But you
send me
know what?
Bitcoin.
If you did videos and even, did a paid series on applying those ideas to the stock market about when to place a purchase, that would be fantastic because, Joni talks a lot about investing and she's always telling us, well, don't worry about the stock market being down right now because it's a buyer's market and all the millionaires and billionaires are going to come in and it's a sale. It's a sale. They're
Hmm.
getting cheap stocks, so it's never going to crash. And she's like, I want you guys to get into this and become, financially prosperous because there's no reason why you shouldn't. And a lot of people are just intimidated by it. But it's like you see, the E-Trade app and the Ameritrade app and all this stuff, and it's like, okay, I have my Bitcoin apps. I've invested in Bitcoin, but that doesn't seem to be going anywhere right now. So I need to know how to do this, without having to go to a broker and all that kind of stuff. So any information, about
Yeah.
that would really, really help people.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's a lot there. There's a lot of different directions we can go. I'm not a finance guy. I'm terrible with money, and that's an understatement. But I do astrology, and I have looked at how to apply astrology um, to world things happening in the world, and stocks are part of it. And so you just look at where the planet's going, what is the sound that it represents. For example, Venus right now is I believe it's in the sound E. So things with E should be getting a boost right now. Let me look at the
You want
chart
to
really.
pull up the current chart so we can take a look.
Yeah, it's in the sound E. Okay, let me share my screen here 1 second. I mean, this isn't any kind of advice, and I'm just
Right.
doing
Yeah.
this
We're
off the
not
cuff
giving
here.
financial advice, you guys. We're just speaking from astrology experience. It's all this is.
Uh, oh
Interesting how these things pan out. So
shoot, here, let me blank cell this. I'm gonna put up both North and South Indian, so you can see. Um, Bada bing, bada boom. How you like that?
Awesome.
So right now in the sky, Venus, the planet Venus, is in Taurus, and it happens to be traveling it through the sound like Canadians. Venus is in Taurus, right? So, um, and so things that have the sound like stocks or cryptos right now for the next few days should get a boost because Venus is a benefic, it's in its own sign. So, energy, Ethereum, I don't know if that was E or A. Ethereum, maybe Ethereum. I think maybe
It's
Ethereum
like
was
an
a,
It's like an
yeah,
You're
but things that are A. So
ethy.
anything that has the word energy or enlightenment, I don't know, should get a boost. So that's one way to look at stocks. There are obviously many other ways. You can look at the chart of the stock itself. That's probably the most accurate. But I'm pretty lazy. I don't like doing too much research. So I'd take a snapshot and if it calls to me, if it's a strong testimony, then I'll predict using it. So this is the
Well,
chart of
Exxon.
could be Exxon, although see everything is contained. It's like a Russian doll within something else. So Exxon is contained within the more general theme of oil prices being depressed.
Right.
So even though it itself may be doing well relative to the general oil kind of stocks, it's still not going to be as good as maybe something else that's A necessarily. But let's see what Exxon is doing right now. Can you see
Right.
my screen?
Yes.
Uh, uh, Exxon price chart. I'm going to look for it. I don't think. Here, I'll do my share.
Yeah, well, just tonight I was listening to the live broadcast that Trump's been doing every day, and he said that um, they're going to do something to, stop Saudi from, this war that's going on between Saudi and Russia. That's why the price is down. He's like, I'm going to change it because the United States needs to be making money. Like the people over here
Mm-hmm.
in oil are suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even though it's great for people that are, broke right now, it's also hurting the economy to have the oil price so low.
Right, but the other side of that argument is how long are we going to perpetuate a fossil fuel of dead uh,
Oh, I
animals
know.
and
Oh, honey,
th-
listen, my husband's a free energy
that
inventor. He has
eh,
two
eh,
patents. I hear about this
woo,
every day, and all he
right?
does is scream at the TV on these mainstream
Well,
science
the
channels.
man is correct, I think,
Yeah,
and
but you
he's
know
a
what?
visionary.
Even with his generator, it needs a little bit of gasoline. So,
Yep.
it will never totally go away. We just need to be less dependent on it. And we're not trying to. And actually, we were just watching a video from the Breakthrough Energy conference that he went to in Amsterdam in February, and that the guy was saying exactly that it's not about change. The new technology isn't about replacing the old and killing off everybody's jobs in that whole industry. It's about integration.
Sure.
It's about
Yeah.
evolvement and using what we have and using those, technologies to, transfer into something better. So I think that's important for people to understand that, we don't want to just get rid of fossil fuel and everything. We just want to integrate it so it's more holistic with other technologies.
Correct. But the question you brought up is a question of investment. So the question
Yes.
is, what do you want to invest your energy, your money into? And so oil represents the past, right? It
Right.
represents the everything that's just like. And look, I actually think it will go. At one point, we used to slaughter whales because we needed whale blubber and whale oil. We don't need that anymore. We found other
Right.
ways to light the night. There are a number of we used to have coal power, then we got diesel, and at some point diesel will be phased out. So when that happens, it could be 100, could be 300 years from now. We don't know. But do you want to invest in that or invest in the future? And to me,
Right.
things like cryptocurrencies, things like renewable energy sources, those are the more sattvic investments. Sattvic meaning that uh, uh, that have to do with the empowerment of humankind.
Right.
And you can actually, the planet Venus teaches us that we can be sattvic, meaning spiritual, and have our shit together financially. Pardon my French, because Venus rules both wealth and possessions as well as deep spiritual insight. Venus is the son of Brigu, who is the first astrologer. So Venus rules over the art of astrology. And people think it's all Jupiter and Jupiter. It's not. It's Venus. And so Venus was the practical, very practical planet because anywhere you go in the world, if you're an astrologer, you you can make money. You'll be invited into people's homes, or at least you'll have dinner, right? At least you have supper. My teachers used to, you know, roll their eyes and tell stories of, every time they traveled somewhere, people would go, "Oh, please come to my house. We'll cook for you." The Within 30 seconds of the moment they step into the house, right, they could smell the food and it's beautiful. Oh, it smells so good. And they'll say, "Oh, dinner's almost ready, but tell me about my horoscope."
Oh yeah.
Or, "Hey, my daughter, she's seeing this guy. You think he's good for her? I don't think she should marry him. By the way, my dog is a little sick. Could you maybe?" And right, us, and my teacher's like, my stomach, here I am, my stomach's growling, but everybody wants a piece of you. Why? Because you know some of the Shastra.
Right.
And
And that's exactly why Jupiter can't stand Venus, is because she'll just teach anybody, and he won't.
right, correct. Venus teaches the asuras, those who are less, less refined, right? They
Right.
have demonic qualities, whereas Jupiter will teach only those who are, quote unquote, qualified. And two professions, medicine and astrology, those are the ones you can go anywhere in the world and you'll get a meal, you know.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, yeah.
So
So,
using the sounds
well,
that
using
go
the
with the
sounds,
nakshatras to find out, yeah, how
but
to
oh,
predict things.
yeah, but things are more complicated than that, or else they would have figured this out already.
Right.
So smarter people than us would have figured this out a long time ago if that's all there was to it. Uh, Astrology is like life, you know. It's complicated. You can get a raise and your grandma can die on the same day. Was it a good day? You know, well, good things and bad things happened on that day.
Yeah.
Maybe you get diarrhea, but the girl you've been wanting to asked you out on that day. Was it a good day or a bad day for you? Life is complicated, and there's
That's
multiple
right.
things wanting to affect your mind. So, are you going to think about the fact that you got a date, which is something you've been hoping for all your life, or the fact that your belly is absolutely miserable and you're on the toilet 6 times a day? Because that's going to determine your state.
Right.
And every day it's a battle. Every day it's a battle between, am I going to focus on the negative stuff happening in my chart, or am I going to bring in the positive and focus on that to determine, is this a good day? Does that
Mhm.
make sense?
Amen. Well, speaking of right now, as you see, we've got a Pluto Jupiter conjunction at 45 minutes,
Bada bing,
0
bada boom.
degrees
Right now, as we speak. Yeah.
as we speak. So here's the guru, giving very deep, occult Plutonian kind of secrets knowledge.
Well, and Western astrologers will tell you that in many cases, this is a combination for wealth, particularly in, babies that are being born right now. Cha-ching.
Right.
It's not always, but it can be. And so, because Jupiter is banking and wealth, and Pluto is the underworld, Pluto is Pluto is where you store all of your stuff. It's the treasure house. It's what's underground. Pluto also is Pluto's a lot of things, but Pluto is the smallest of the planets in the sense that he's not even a planet. He's now called a dwarf planet, and he rules things that are small but have giant repercussions, like the splitting.
Virus.
Hmm?
Like a virus.
Exactly, like a virus. In fact, within a year of when Pluto was discovered, Alexander Fleming discovered antibiotics. the ability to fight on a minuscule level. The atom was split in two, and the first bomb in Nagasaki was in Hiroshima was plutonium. And so Pluto rules the power of the small to have massive effects. And by the way, in the United States chart at the moment, this is the second house of the United States chart. The U.S. is a Sag Lagna, so the Lagna is here. And so Pluto and Jupiter are transiting the second house. The moment Jupiter entered is when they signed the deal to send people money.
Yep.
But because Jupiter is debilitated, by the way, the moment Pluto entered is when the whole market came crashing down. You can look it up. Pluto entered, and maybe a day or two later, the market tanked. So when Pluto changed signs sidereally, in the United States chart, it falls in the second house of the economy. And so it absolutely took things where? Into the netherworld, which Pluto rules. That's what Pluto does. He comes out, he steals the beautiful maiden, and he comes back. That's the mythology. You have to read the mythology to understand these planets.
Right. Hades, the god of the underworld. Yeah,
he's the god of the underworld. So he came out, he stole our dear money, and he took it with him.
Sure did.
Now Jupiter, who is in a Thor or the god Jupiter, the good guy, is coming to try to fix things. But what happens to Jupiter in Capricorn? He's debilitated.
Right.
So he's trying to fix things from a place of weakness.
Right.
And will it help? Yes, it will help. But he's going to eventually retrograde back in here. So the help is temporary.
But also, because this is something I've been really mulling over, because Jupiter is debilitated in Capricorn. But isn't it a Nietzsche Banga that he has with Saturn? Because Saturn is he's in his own sign of Capricorn. So wouldn't that help to strengthen his position? Because historically, like over the last 30, 40 years, whenever Jupiter has been in Capricorn, the economy has actually done well because it makes people more cautious and not, have that false hope that Jupiter
right.
Capricorn
And he's double Nietzsche Banga now because Mars is also exalted in there and Saturn is there. So he's double Nietzsche Banga. The problem is he's double Nietzsche Banga with two very tamasic planets, the most tamasic planet. So tamas is darkness, heaviness, and one of the things, this is something James Kelleher talks about, is that when Jupiter and Saturn connect, especially in Capricorn, which happens every 60 years, it is a low point in dharma. Why? Because Capricorn is a tamasic sign, Saturn is a tamasic planet, Mars is a tamasic planet today, in this case now, and Jupiter's sattva, his sattvika qualities, are lessened. So on the material sense, yes, it's good, but from the point of view of deeper understanding of respect for truth, for honor, like that's why people are stealing toilet paper. You get it? This is tamasic. This is tamas in operation.
Everyone's becoming religious all of a sudden,
But you get it, it's tamas because it has to do with things you put in your butt, waste material. People are hoarding the most tamasic of things. Have I said this word enough? Tamasic. So, one more time, tamasic. So, yes, Jupiter is good in one sense, but it will be good probably only in a material sense. In a spiritual sense, it's a dark time because it's sort of the height of quote unquote fake news. And at the end of this year, Jupiter and Saturn will actually be conjunct, and that's a whole nother thing because
yes, that's my theory about this. Now I'm just a baby astrologer. I've only been predicting for a few years, but I have.
If you're a baby, I'm a toddler. Okay, so.
But my point is that one thing that I think is going to manifest on this is when Saturn and Jupiter come really close in June. They come within like 5 degrees of each other, I think.
Hmm.
That will be a point of manifestation, and then they go retrograde, which is going to, when Jupiter goes back into Sag, then you think it would be good because he's going to be in his own sign, but I think it's actually going to cause more like a cosmic dissonance. This whole thing is a cosmic dissonance, right? It's like a chord on the piano is just like, it's not
Yeah.
either way. It doesn't sound good, but especially for governments, it's not going to be as good when Saturn goes back into Sag, even though it's his own sign. But when he goes forward again, they come together again. I think it's December 20th of this year. And that's going to be, that's an exact conjunction at 6 degrees. And that's going to
Mm.
be like point of manifestation, growth, like a good thing that comes from it.
Mm, maybe on the
That's,
material level, but
yeah,
again, this point of tamas, it is also the low point of truth. So we're going to have a lot of confusion about who actually won the election,
yes.
what's true, what's not true, and it's already sort of gearing up to that.
Okay.
So there are different ways to look at it, and when we say good or bad, we have to qualify it. Good for what? Like I said, you have diarrhea, but the girl asked you out. Was it a good day? So different countries who have different charts will experience this in different ways. So the US will experience it one way, Libya will experience it in another way. So I don't like making blank statements about, well, this influence means this. Well, for whom? For somebody, if it's in their eighth house, it ain't good, right? But if it's
Right.
in positive bhavas, house 10 or 11, then it could produce wealth and so on. So, and the thing about Jupiter and Saturn is, on a more abstract level, they are the two markers of human evolution in the sense that Ayurveda, the science of health and wellness, derives the human lifespan from two full Jupiter Saturn cycles, meaning when Jupiter Saturn are in the same sign, they will be 20 years later, they will be in the same sign that's 5 houses away. 40
Right.
years later, they'll be in the same sign that's 9 houses away. And then 60 years later, they'll return to the sign. So 60 years from now, Jupiter and Saturn should be again in Capricorn. So Ayurveda says that two of those cycles are the optimal lifespan, 120 years.
Uh-huh.
Jyotisha says two of those cycles are the optimal lifespan, 120 years. Why? Because that's how long the Dasha system is.
Mhm.
And so Jupiter and Saturn have a lot to do with mundane events, with human expectation, human life, and observing their exact conjunction is one of the techniques that ancient astrologers used to predict world events. So here I'm going to tell you how the technique works. You go to the time, the moment when that conjunction is exact. You said it's December 20th, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So let's go there. And first, let's pull it up. All right. So the first moment that it happens is what we're looking for. Okay. Here we go. Here we go. As you can tell, I haven't done this yet. So,
This is like all I do. I swear to God, I'm just
yeah.
like sitting here clicking, watching the planets dance. That's like my
Look at this, December 21st,
okay,
2020.
21st.
It's
Okay, and this is
Yeah.
a Buckeye. So is that Ohio?
No, this is Buckeye, Arizona. This is from my
Oh,
location.
Buckeye. Okay, okay. So that
So
is 3 hours
3 hours behind Eastern,
forward
so
would be actually a
12:40.
22nd for
No, no,
EST.
no. 12:40 p.m.
Oh, okay.
Eastern. This is 9:40 in the morning.
Got it, got it.
Yeah. So there you have it, and it'll actually be right on the ascendant, believe it or not. Look at this. Right where I am, the moment the conjunction happens, it will be both planets will be visible on the eastern horizon. This is cool. I haven't looked at this yet. Exactly at my location.
Wow.
So if anybody wants to have a viewing party, come to the West Coast. This and you'll be able to see these two bright stars. Will they be bright? Well, no, neither of them is retrograde. They'll be visible though. Wait,
Wow.
no. Hold on. Sun is in the sky. Sorry, they will not be visible. This is in
Okay.
the morning, so I stand corrected. So
Yeah,
somewhere
you have to
opposite of
be like Japan or Korea.
in
No,
India, probably
India.
will be
Yeah.
visible.
Uh,
Anyhow, so this is how. So the moment this conjunction happens, you pull the chart for the city that you live in.
yeah.
So if we want to know what's going to happen in the U.S., I would have to pull this for Washington D.C., the capital. Okay, so let me actually let's file, save as Jupiter, Saturn conjunction. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to change this to Washington, D.C. And now we can make predictions based on this.
Is Buckeye near Sedona?
No, it's Phoenix basically.
Oh, okay. Okay. Phoenix.
Yeah. It's West Phoenix. I call it the LA suburbs.
Only like
Yeah.
2 hours from LA or something, right?
No, 4.5 hours from
Four
LA.
and a half. Oh,
Oh
okay.
yeah, it's far by car.
That's nothing. It's from here to Chicago. Ah,
It's nothing. What you complaining about? Here we go. So December 9:51 a.m. Okay, now hold on a second here. Let me look at something. USA,
their
Washington.
time? Do you want
No.
USA chart or do you want just for Washington, D.C.?
So this is so the
Okay.
way this technique works is you pull it for the capital city of where you want to investigate.
At that time.
At the moment the conjunction happens, the fourth cusp is at 4 degrees Taurus.
So this is in their 10th house of career. So that should help all the politicians and all the government structures and all the money and careers that, have been.
Well, the ascendant is actually because this happens a few
Oh, I'm
hours.
looking, you know what? I'm looking at the North chart. I shouldn't
Yeah.
even look at the North
Don't
chart.
look at that pesky
Don't
North
look,
chart.
my brain goes, I know
Right?
how to do it. I know how to do it, but it's like my first instinct is to look at the number as the house ruler, and that's the sign ruler. So just erase what I just said. So this is taking place on their ascendant. Yes.
And so now this is now what one thing you can do is look at I look at the cusps basically, but you can use this chart to sort of predict for the next 20 years until this happens again. So this is a long-term kind of chart, except that you can also use the Dasha Bhukti as well. So you can see here that in this chart, this gives us a prognosis for the U.S., what's to come. Anyway, I'm not trying to teach this as a technique, partly because I'm not a mundane astrologer. I don't really use this stuff as
No, Joni
that much.
uses this. Joni uses this. And
But
I think, yeah.
the Saturn Jupiter conjunctions are major markers of time, both for nations as well as for human beings. And so they are significant, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, do you think, because, because the Vimshotri Dasha cycle is only 120 years and countries and cities go on past that, do you think that the Dasha cycles are effective after that point?
100%, 100%.
Okay.
They
And that's
just
because
repeat.
you've used it and you've seen it and it works.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, look at the U.S. We are in a Rahu
we're in
period.
Rahu. Yeah.
The moment
totally
Rahu took over, an outsider became president. People didn't want an insider.
That's right.
And there's been revolution in all kinds of, even the Me Too movement is a revolution. All kinds of revolutions happening
Right.
in the U.S. chart.
And we're
So,
going to go into Rahu Saturn, or we're in Rahu Saturn now, and we're going to, or what's our
Rahu Saturn
movie?
starts late October, right
Late
before the
October.
election.
That's what I was thinking.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. Things are
And
looking
we're in
crazy.
Sati Sati now. As soon as Saturn entered Capricorn,
You
because
are
our
right.
Venus is
That's
in
right.
Aquarius. So
Mhm.
hello, 7 year itch, right?
Mhm. Yep. The 7-year itch. It's gonna get a little itchy here pretty
Yeah.
soon. Yeah. So, but the most obvious thing that's happening in the U.S. right now is the K2 is exactly on the Lagna. And folks, last time, I mean, look, God bless him, when Kobe Bryant had K2 transiting his Lagna and a few other very bad things, you know, he had an accident. K2 is, last time K2 was here at 9 degrees Sagittarius was 9/11. So, and like 9/11, it's producing an event that will have repercussions for a long time. Even though the actual event of 9/11, there were what 3,000-4,000 casualties. I don't remember, and in no way does this intended to minimize that. But if you think about, you know, World War II, where hundreds of thousands of people, Americans, perished, or other occasions, it was relatively minor in terms of the cost of life, but it was huge in terms of the cost of the effect in fear, where everyone was living in fear for a while, and paranoia, and in the sense of feeling like we are vulnerable. And this is what this virus is doing now, but in a different way. And it's exactly on the ascendant of the US chart, and it is about to move on. So K2 right here at the moment, it's reached its worst. And now as it moves backwards, that's slowly gonna release. And by the time it moves out of Sag, this should be gone. September,
Right.
end of September sometime.
And
September
also,
20th.
Mula's ruler is K2, so that's a double whammy. And then opposite Rahu and Ardra, whose ruler is Rahu, that
Yeah.
adds more emphasis, I think, to these transit points,
Correcto mundo. Correcto mundo. And listen, I would love to continue this maybe some other time, but as I mentioned, I do have to go right now. But any final thoughts on the?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, I love I love doing transit work like this because, and I hate the word mundane, to tell you the truth, because it implies that it's something every day and it's not important. When to me, this is like the most important thing, because we understand history, we understand why things are happening. And then when you understand the big picture, then it's easier to understand your place in it.
Correct. If we understand our vessel, we can better understand what's cooking in the vessel.
Mm-hmm. And proof's in the pudding. You can't argue with world events. When an event happens, it's because of XYZ with the planets. And so
Pudding.
it's our biggest blessing, is having historical events to study, because it's a fact. It happened. It's not like we can sit here and theorize all we want about stuff, but when it comes down to it, it's how it pans out in reality. And so that's what history teaches us, and that's why I love it. So thank you so much for this introduction. And I know a lot of people are going to be interested in signing up for your courses, and in a few weeks you will have your website revamped.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
So I believe that is spirittype.com. Yes?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So I know we're going to be very excited about seeing that. And thank you so much.
All the best. Namaste. Thank you, Katya. Next time we'll talk about aliens.
Awesome. Oh, yes. I can't wait. Yes,
right.
We're going to talk about star seeds and all that fun stuff. So,
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you.
Okay.
Namaste.
See you next time.